Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel Say What's Real TV, coming back with another review for Hulu's Reasonable Doubt. This is season 3, episode 5, Threat. So we open up the episode and it's the first day of Ozzy's trial. We get a little montage and we see Jax over there getting dressed. We see Ozzy getting dressed with the help of his little predator agent. And mind you, she is still feeding him pills. Now I'm trying to figure out how is it that she can spend the night and do all of this and Sal and Rosie have no clue that she's been sleeping with their son. So we get to the courthouse, everyone's arriving at the same time, fighting the crowd. And as Christian is going through the door, she gets a phone call and the contact name says F no, but she doesn't answer. So Chad opens up with the prosecution's opening statements and he reminds the jury that Ozzy is an actor. He's going to try to play innocent like he was so in love with his girlfriend, but he wants them to focus on the evidence and not be fooled by the character that they think Ozzy is. So as Chad was talking, going through the events that took place, they showed Ozzy's face and he was having these flashbacks of the two of them arguing, and then a real quick flashback of someone chasing Wendy through the woods with the pow pow going off. Now, I don't know if this means that it was coming back to him that he was actually there and that happened, or he was imagining this happening as Chad was talking. But I'm really hoping we're not getting a Braden Miller situation again. So now it's Jack's turn to give her opening statements, and she lets the jury know that yes, Ozzy is an actor, but he's not an unaliver. And basically lets them know no matter what the prosecution tries to present them with to convince them otherwise, there are too many facts and inconsistencies that's going to prove them wrong. And she gives them examples. He has no motive. He has no history of violence. The prosecution has no evidence that he was even at the crime scene because his GPS showed he never left his house. And when the police wanted to talk to him, he went willingly. She tells the jury she doesn't know about them, but she doesn't plan on tuning in to the next episode because the prosecution's case is full of circumstantial evidence, which will provide reasonable doubt, and they will find Ozzy Edwards not guilty of this crime. So in the next scene, we see Jax and Daniel over at Ozzy's with Christian, and she's trying to lock down his alibi, proving that he was home that night. So they bring up him being home watching TV, and he says normally when he gets high, he watches First 48. Jax was like, I don't think that'll be a good idea, telling the jurors that considering you're on trial for unaliving your girlfriend, that makes her nervous. But nevertheless, it will solidify his alibi. So Jax then tells Ozzy to give his logins and passwords to Daniel. He looks at Christian all crazy, and Jax was like, well, is there something wrong? So Christian says that he doesn't know them. They're saved on the TV in the bedroom. And I'm like, something is fishy about that. So now Jax wants a moment with Ozzy. So she tells Daniel to go help Christian out and says to him that she needs to talk to him about Monica and the SA he experienced as a child. He starts stumbling and bumbling saying, I never said it was Monica, like who told you that? She was like, well, by your reaction, you just confirmed it. And we know Jax has to play the game because she cannot tell him the truth of how she really knows about Monica. So she notices that he starts twitching and carrying on and realizes that he gets triggered talking about this particular subject, and that's when he disengages and wants to get high. So Jax is asking him, like, were you with Monica that night? Is she your alibi? He keeps telling her no, wants to know why does she keep asking him that when he already said he was alone. And she's like, look, if you wasn't with Monica and you wasn't with Byron, basically you need to provide someone that can help you with this alibi. He keeps saying no one. And then begs Jax not to tell his parents about the whole Monica situation because they don't need anything else to worry about. And I'm like, well, what the hell they worried about? Because I feel like ever since the girl was unalive, they've been MIA. But nevertheless, Jax tells him she's not going to say anything and she gives him her word. So back in the bedroom, Christian is supposed to be getting the login and passwords off of the TV, but all of a sudden she can't find it and claim it's not there because it was never there in the first place. But anyway, so she starts looking through her phone saying that maybe she have them saved in there somewhere, but Daniel sees where F No has called her several times and he questions her about it. So she peeps that he's slightly jealous, so she manipulates him and starts kissing him. So she admits that it is a guy and he's a friend, but an annoying friend. But she is single, but hopefully not for long, like hint, hint. And apparently Daniel forgot he was on the clock. He's back there locking lips, and Jax have to yell his name out like, "Are you ready?" And just like that, Christian airdrops him the login passwords. Like, girl, you knew they was in your phone the whole time. So the next day in court, they bring the lead detective on Wendy's case to the stand and also the chief medical examiner. So with the detective, we find out that even though Ozzy had the scratches on his chest, his DNA was not found under Wendy's fingernails, nor was his fingerprints on the weapon that was used in her unaliving. So Jax asked him about the search warrant that they obtained to try to find Wendy's personal phone and asked him did they find it in Ozzy's house, and he said no. She wanted to know did they find Wendy's car at the cabin. He also said no. So she asked him about the string of robberies that was going on around the cabin and did he even try to link those to what happened to Wendy, and he said no. So Jax had no further questions, but then Chad comes up and he asked the detective why didn't he try to link the crimes to what happened to Wendy, and he said there were 3 reasons. For one, the cabin didn't have any forced entry. 2, the other burglaries did not have any violence involved. And the third one, they had overwhelming evidence that was pointing all towards Ozzy. So when it came to Archie Golden, the medical examiner, Bill pretty much packed her right on up and asked her, was she an Ozzy fan? She said no, but she's not a critic either. She considers herself neutral. So Bill pretty much called Cap, and he showed this tweet to the jurors that she tweeted stating that Ozzy was the rudest celebrity she had ever met because he didn't want to take a picture with her daughter. Pretty much sounding like the lady in the airport when his grandmother died. So with that, Bill showed that she was showing potential bias. So later on after court, we see Jax going to see Mama Lou. She's out walking with some of her friends. Jax respectfully goes up to her and asks her, can she talk to her for a minute? The same thing Lewis should have did last week, but whatever. But apparently what Lewis did do is go home and tell Jax his version of the story after he got read for filth. So she gets straight to the point with Mama Lou, like, why are you telling all my business to Eddie? And that lying-ass Lewis told her that he went to talk to Eddie about taking it slow with the kids. When did that happen? And according to Lewis, Eddie brought up Tony and Damon and all of that situation, and he shouldn't know any of our business. So it had to come from you. She's like, oh, well, he's not a stranger. He's your dad. He just wants to know what's been going on in your life. I'm like, Mama Lou, please. So Jax lets her know if he wants to know anything, he can come and ask me, and I'll tell him what I want him to know. So this lady fixes her lips to say that Eddie wanted to know everything about Jax, and she needed somebody to share the information with. Like, really? So Jax lets her know this is all about her. While she's laying over there enjoying all this pillow talk, sharing her information, did she tell her daddy about what she allowed Paul to do while she over there bumping her gums? Now that is the correct question. And of course, Mama Lou sitting there like she's doing a mute challenge, and Jax says, I didn't think so. If you're gonna tell the story, tell all of it, period. And she pretty much reminds her mom that once again, she's interfering with her dad's relationship, the relationship she has with her husband and her kids. And then lets her know that she knows all about the daddy meeting the kids the other day, which she failed to mention. And this is just one of the reasons I get so agitated with Mama Lou, because instead of her taking accountability, apologizing to Jax for allowing Eddie in her house around her kids, when you knew damn well she didn't want Eddie in her house, and not only that, you didn't say ish about it. And then you sit up there pillow talking with this absentee father, telling all her business, all the negative stuff, minus the part where you let raggedy ass Paul touch and feel all up on her. Now, I want Eddie to find out about that. So of course, Jax is not going to get an apology, but what she does get is a bunch of rah-rah and deflection at its best by jumping up telling Jax to watch her tongue. She's still her mom, and while she thinks she's this and that and the other in these heels, she's the one that taught her how to walk, talk, and to wipe her ass, and proceeds to continue her little monologue telling Jax that she likes to blame her for everything, but she didn't tell her to go and mess with Damon or get yourself sued by your husband's side piece. See, that right there, I wouldn't tell her any more of my business ever. But she tells Jax that was all on her, and that one day she won't be around to be her punching bag. Now, I found it interesting that she threw that last line in there about one day she won't be around. It dawned on me that what if Mama Lou is the one in the room that Jax walks in on when she's screaming in episode 1. So she tells Jax basically when she's no longer here, who is she going to blame for her grown-ass choices? And she got real shady and petty and said, and by the way, Lewis didn't go over there to talk to Eddie about taking it slow with the kids or whatever you said. So Jax said, well, what did he say? She said, oh no, ask your husband, girl, because like you said, it's none of my business. And she walks off real petty like. So in the next scene, we see Kristen getting another phone call from F. No, and then her doorbell rings. So when she goes to the door, we finally see who F. No is, and it's Alex Hill, the guy who was on the phone with Ozzy a couple of episodes back that told him F his alibi. So she asked him what the F is he doing there. He says because none of you Edwards are answering your phones, meaning he's been calling her, Sal, and Rosie. And says that the only one that's answering is Ozzy and he's not trying to talk to him. And he tells her that they need to talk about Wendy and he just brushes his way past her and goes inside the house. Now last week I knew Christian was up to no good when she threw out that name Byron, when she knew that man was nowhere near Ozzy and didn't bring Alex's name up. So in their conversation, we learned that Christian has given him $10,000 for what we don't know. He is claiming that ever since the trial started, the media has been swarming around his business, digging through his trash and stuff, and he needs $100,000 more. She tells him she doesn't have that kind of money just laying around, and he says if someone looks hard enough, he's pretty sure it can be found up under the bed or something. And I'm like, what, along with those journals? And side note, when is Daniel gonna put the journals back up under the bed? So he basically threatens her and tells her if he doesn't get that extra $100,000 so he can skip town, he's going to go and talk to Chad, the DA. And he just might turn in this home video to the fake TMZ. And she's pretty shook when she hears about this home video, but she says she doesn't know what video he's talking about, but just give them a few days to try to get the money together. Now, I need to know who is on this home video and what does it entail. And him calling all of the Edwards and them ignoring him says that the whole family is involved some kind of way with this Wendy situation. So in the next scene, we see Lewis meeting up with Daniel and telling him he wanted to talk to him without Jax knowing. See, Lewis, this is where you're doing absolutely the most, because you have no right, first of all, going behind Jax's back, talking to Daniel about her personal business. For one, he needs to be working. He is her lead investigator on a huge case she is currently on trial for. And you're interfering with that by having him frolicking around talking about Eddie because you feel some kind of way. Now, I get you want to protect your kids and Jax, but I feel like it's just more than that. So he tells Daniel that he wants one of his trackers so he can put it on Eddie to see what he has going on. So Daniel tells him just to let it play out. So Lewis comes back with, well, what if something happens to my kids or Jax in the meantime? And I'm like, Lewis, please. And Daniel tells him, how about you just get a home one? Basically, just order you one from off of Amazon. And Lewis, you should have been smart enough to know, just go ahead and go online and order one so nobody knows what you were doing. So it's the next day, we're back in court, and the prosecution brings to testify John, which is Ozzy's next door neighbor, and one of his ex-girlfriends named Annelle. So Chad was basically trying to paint the picture that Ozzy was very violent and argumentative all the time. So the video that was circulating of Ozzy and Wendy getting into it comes from John's Ring camera. He says that the two of them arguing happens all the time, so he really didn't think it was a big deal. And he didn't see her again until days later when he saw her on the news and she was unalive. So Ozzy's ex-girlfriend, she pretty much was jealous because she says that Ozzy left her for Wendy. But being with him was like being with the Hulk. She had to walk on eggshells, and come to find out she had to file a police report because they got into it one time and he basically choked her out. So Jax had to discredit her real quick because Ozzy had filed a restraining order against her, which she violated by coming to his house. Like, girl, go sit down somewhere. So after court, Jax, she meets up with the ladies, but before Sally and Chanel gets there, her and Autumn have a conversation about Ozzy and the whole Monica situation and his addiction. So Autumn reminds her that she's kind of dealt with that with her dad, and maybe talking to him would give her some type of insight into Ozzy's case. So Chanel and Sally, they finally show up, and we find out that Autumn is 5 months pregnant, and her and Kendall, her wife that we've never seen, thinks that it may be a girl. So they get on to Sally, wondering how her kids are dealing with the separation between her and Chris. And basically, she really doesn't want to talk about it because they don't know that she's still having sex with Chris, but Jax does. But Jax is sitting there like, I'm not even getting ready to open my mouth. But you can tell that Chanel is fed up. So later on, afterwards, outside of the restaurant, Jax apologizes to Sally, telling her she didn't mean to be so harsh and she wasn't trying to be judgy. Now, in this moment, you can tell that therapy has really done Jax some good, because in season 1, Jax said what she had to say and didn't care how you felt about it. So there's some growth here. But I still think Sally was over the top with her reaction. But anyway, Jax tells her she just wants her to get off the roller coaster because she knows firsthand how it feels because she's been there, done that. And basically that's all she had to say to her last week. But she tells Sally that she doesn't want her to be the only one fighting for their marriage. But whatever she chooses to do, she has her back no matter what. So Sally let her know that she appreciated the apology, and both the hater and the 304 hugged it out. So in the next scene, we go over there to the rinky-dink motel where Eddie is when Jax pops up. And he's trying to clean up before he opens the door, and she comes in looking around like she's scared to touch anything, and I don't blame her because it is a little raggedy up in that piece. So she starts making small talk and saying how she just left dinner with the girls and Naima's with the babysitter, and lying-ass Lewis is allegedly working late. And of course, Eddie couldn't resist taking a shot at Lewis and says at least he's bringing in some type of money. And Jax checks him and says, that's not what we're doing. I need you to respect my husband and our wishes, including not showing up to our house unannounced. And he said, oh, like you just did me. She couldn't help but say touche, like, okay, you got me. So he tells her that he hears her and it's not a problem. So she tells him that she wants to talk more about his addiction and how he got started. So he tells her in the music industry, drugs are pretty much everywhere. All the cool cats he knew were on something. And for him, it kind of started with a cigarette, then it went to a joint, then a straw, then a pipe, and then a needle, and so forth. So Jax wanted to know, like, who supplied all of this. And he said that could have been anybody from a bandmate, a promoter, a manager, or an agent. And once she heard agent, then it kind of sparked something in her because, of course, her mind went straight to Monica. So Eddie tells her that the agents use substances to control the artist because they really want you more broken than whole. So Eddie, he got real sentimental, letting her know that he knew he failed her every time he got high, but the dope made the pain go away and it just became this vicious cycle. But he let Jax know that no matter how high he got, he always thought about her, nodding off, dreaming where she was she happy, what she was doing, and that he loved her with everything that he had. And he begged her, please, not to let his actions from the past define him. So he reached in and gave her this hug, and she really didn't hug him back, but it seems as if, I don't know if she was longing for that moment or she was still processing. I really couldn't tell by her expression. Now, while all of that is going on the inside, on the outside of the rinky-dink, you got lying-ass Lewis pulling up thinking he's Columbo or Magnum P.I. He gets out of his car sneaking and creeping, putting the tracker on Eddie's car until he hears someone coming out of Eddie's room. So he goes and hides behind his car. But to his surprise, it's his wife leaving her father's hotel room, and he can't believe it. But guess what? He can't say a damn thing about it because you're supposed to be at work, Lewis. Don't you have something else to do, sir? So going over there to Chad's office, apparently the Edwards and Christian didn't come up with that $100,000 because Alex is in his office acting real smug, telling him he wants to talk Ozzy Edwards, but he needs legal protection first. We get a real quick scene with Crystal and Daniel, and he's telling her he wants to get a gift for someone, but he doesn't want to seem cringy. And he forgot all about the lie that he told Crystal about it being his neighbor. So for some odd reason, they start talking about how they please people in different ways, and she wants to know what's the dirtiest thing he's ever done to someone. So he whispers in her ear and she gets turned on. So back in the courtroom, now we have Nisha on the stand, Wendy's assistant. Now she was trying to paint the picture that Ozzy was so mean to Wendy and that when she told him that Wendy had disappeared, he didn't care. Jax gets up there and she does her thing. She provides an email that Nisha sent out to all of Wendy's clients saying that she's taking over the business. Now keep in mind, she sent this email on the third day that Wendy was missing. They had not even found her body yet. So why would you send the email out as if you knew she wasn't coming back? I still got my good eye on that Nisha. I felt like she wanted everything that Wendy had, including Ozzy. So in the next scene, we see wannabe detective need to have his ass at work, Lion Lewis, following behind Eddie. We see Eddie and another gentleman pulling up, getting out of their cars. The one guy actually has a weapon on his hip. So they head into one of the housing units while Lewis sits his ass in the car taking pictures like he is some real deal detective or something. Like, Lewis, please. And I'm willing to bet whatever Lewis thinks is going on, it's not going to be that. It will be something, but it's not going to be what Lewis thinks it is. So in the next scene, we see Jax confront Monica in the parking garage about her relationship with Ozzy. And in her response, it's very clear that Monica is very delusional, as if she sees nothing wrong with her messing with a 13-year-old boy. So Jax flat out accuses her of unaliving Wendy and says that she's going to expose her. So she basically tried to flip the script on Jax, saying that when it was about the NDA, Jax really didn't want to be bothered, but soon as it became an unaliving, her eyes lit up because being close to Ozzy helps the both of them in different ways, but the benefits are the same. More money, more respect, and more validation, and says she didn't get the validation at home and she's guessing neither did Jax. She didn't give a damn what Monica was talking about. She told her to stay the F away from Ozzy. So in the next scene, we see that Eddie is really living rent-free in Lewis's head. He is meeting up with Daniel again, this time telling him that he thinks that Eddie has relapsed, but he can't tell Jax. And since Eddie doesn't have an online presence, he wants Daniel to use his resources and dig deeper for him. And Daniel basically tells him he needs to get paid for his services. All I can say is I feel like this is not going to end well for Daniel or Lewis because, for one, Daniel, again, needs to be focused on the case. He's distracted by Christian. Now he's distracted by Lewis with this foolishness with Eddie. Lewis, on the other hand, you need to be worried about what's going on at your job. Is Sam still over there messing up? Because every time we see you, you're not at work. If we know Jax, she's going to feel some kind of way that you and Daniel are going behind her back, digging up dirt on her dad. Now we get a scene with Chris, and he gets a knock on the door where he is, and it's Chanel. Now immediately, my mind went straight to, I know damn well Chanel is not hunching up on Chris. But no, that wasn't the case. So she basically went over there to tell Chris to stop using her cousin Sally for his emotional punching bag. Like, girl, the reason that they're in this mess, quiet as it's kept, is because Sally put their house up for your ass. But she does acknowledge this, and he tells her that it's deeper than that because he was the first one in his family to become a homeowner. So it was very embarrassing for him to have it all effed up. So he asked her, he said, do you just expect me to just get over it like it's nothing? She tells him no, but what's done is done. It is what it is. Just stop being an asshole and walk away from Sally if she's not what you want. So in the next scene, we see Chad talking to Mike, trying to get tips on how to go toe-to-toe with Jax because he knows that he's had cases against her before. He tells him that Jax's biggest weakness is that she believes in people, basically saying that Jax is too emotionally attached to her clients. So Chad shows Mike the statement from his next witness, and Mike gets a little excited, like, this is more than just the witness, this is a key witness. So Chad is like, well, now you understand, I cannot mess this up. So the scene switches to Bill and Jax going over to Ozzy to confront him for not telling the truth about Alex. So Ozzy is basically saying that Alex went MIA on him because he claimed he needed protection. All that happened was him and Wendy argued. He called Alex over there for some candy. They got high together and he passed out. So Jax is like, well, did you pass out or you just don't remember? Because that's not what he's saying while you're sitting over here quiet as a church mouse. So we get into court and they have Alex on the stand, and we officially learn that he was a co-star of Ozzy's On My Cousins and Them. He played his older brother. They've been knowing each other since Ozzy was 13. Apparently everybody has been dealing with Ozzy since he was 13. So the whole time Alex is talking, you just basically get that he was a child star that didn't soar the way Ozzy did. He says that he lived with the Edwards from time to time because his parents weren't ish. And the whole time he's talking, you see Christian fidgeting in her chair and Daniel peeping everything in her body language. So getting to the night in question, Alex says that Ozzy wanted him to drive him to the cabin to see Wendy. So Chad calls himself producing a receipt of them going through this toll. So he says that he drove him over to the cabin. He sat in the car. It was taking too long. He got out, went looking through the cabin window, saw him yelling and screaming at Wendy. Wendy was crying, so he went back to the car, and that's when he heard gunshots, and he didn't want any parts of that, so he took his ass home. So the main question from Chad here is, was there anybody else in the cabin with Ozzy and Wendy? He hesitated a little bit. He looked at Ozzy. Ozzy looked back at him, and he said no. Ozzy went to scribbling real quick on the paper talking about he's effing lying. And Jax writes back on the paper, I know. Now the whole time Christian's still over there squirming in her chair, and Daniel writes on his notepad, Alex Hill equals FU. So when Jax gets up there, she pretty much demolishes his whole testimony. So she brings up the toll receipt and asks him, since there's no picture, how can he prove that Ozzy was in the car with him? So Jax lets it be known that he hasn't had an acting gig in over 10 years and asks him what does he do for a living. He says he's a CEO of his own company. Basically, he's into sales, pharmaceutical sales. She shows his long rap sheet dealing in narcotics, and basically he got immunity to testify on the stand today. So she did get Alex to admit that he did sell drugs to Ozzy that night, and he was higher than a kite, passing in and out. So Jax pretty much painted the picture that because he was no longer acting and how he got his money was through these drugs, people like Ozzy is how he survived, and he will do anything illegal, take advantage of vulnerable people in certain situations, and commit perjury just to protect himself. And Jax had no further questions. Ozzy was pleased, and Chad was hotter than fish grease. He goes back to his office and he crashes the hell out. So in the next scene, we see Sally and Chris finishing up one of their little mad hunching sessions, and she says she has to go to work. Chris tells her he wants her to join him at his family's house for Thanksgiving, so she gets a little excited or whatever. She asked him what made him change his mind, and he said it was the kids. And you could tell all the air went out of her body. It was like, ugh. She straight up asked him, look, do you want to be together as husband and wife? He says he wants to be there for the kids while they figure it out. So Sally was like, say less. She goes and gets this folder and hands it to him. He opens it up and it's some divorce papers, and he's shocked and appalled. She lets him know that she's serious about this and her lawyer will be in touch, and walked out. So in the next scene, Christian goes over to Daniel's house to play some board games because she's used to playing games. Clearly, we can see that. He questions her about Alex being no, and she lies through her teeth. Christian has been lying about everything. So she basically deflects and manipulates Daniel into a whole hunching session just so she doesn't have to talk about Alex. Now, like I said about Daniel earlier, all these distractions is going to mess him up when it comes to Jax. Now, while he's over there crunching and munching, Jax is trying to get in touch with him, calling his phone because she needs him to look into Monica's alibi the night Wendy was unalive, because she believes that Monica is the guilty party. So in the very last scene, we see Ozzy calling Monica, and he says he needs to talk about this Alex-ish because he can't believe how Alex lied on him. And she's not responding, she's not answering. He's like, Monica, what are you doing? What are you doing? We see her with a bloody sweatshirt or whatever in her hand in front of a bonfire, and she throws it in the fire and tells him, I'm protecting you. And that's where the episode ends. Woo, child. There are so many questions that need answers. Do you guys agree with Jax that Monica is Wendy's unaliver? I'm not so sure that it's Monica. It's only episode 5. We have 5 more episodes to go. We normally don't find out the actual unaliver until episode like 9 or 10. But you never know. They have so much going on. She could be Wendy's unaliver, and there's always so much more going on in the background to be told. I don't trust Christian, Nisha, and that daddy Sal. I want to know why Ozzy had that flashback of chasing Wendy through the woods. I want to know what was on the videotape that Alex says that he has and going to turn into the fake TMZ. And who was actually in the cabin with Wendy the night she was unalive. Drop down in the comments, let me know what you guys think about this episode, what your predictions and theories are. As always, you guys, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.